Welcome to 369 Million Mental Threads, where we weave together the threads of science, psychology, philosophy, and metaphysics to uncover the deeper truths of the human experience. Let's journey together through the mysteries of consciousness, exploring the hidden forces that shape our minds and our reality. From ancient wisdom to cutting-edge discoveries, we'll unlock the secrets of thought, the power of perception, and the unseen connections that influence every aspect of our lives. So sit back, open your mind, and let's unravel the threads that bind us to the extraordinary.
All right, so get this. Today's deep dive is about unlocking your potential. But, and you knew there'd be a but, right?
Yeah.
It's not the usual self-help stuff. We're going deeper. Way deeper. You wanted something more, well, grounded.
Grounded, I like that.
So we're blending ancient wisdom with like this modern hustle, think Jungian psychology.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but also like a high-energy entrepreneur's playbook. Buckle up.
What's fascinating to me is how these different sources, I mean, you've got esoteric philosophy and practical business advice, but they can actually intertwine.
Yeah.
And they reveal these surprising truths about success.
Right. Like, who knew sound waves could be a secret weapon? But let's rewind for a second.
Okay.
Let's start with this shadow self concept from Jung.
Okay.
Now, I'll admit, when I first heard about it, it sounded a bit out there. But the more I dug into it, the more I was like, wait, is he talking about me?
It's funny how often that happens with Jung.
Right.
He argued that everyone has this hidden part of their personality, this shadow. It's where we push down all the stuff that we, for whatever reason, deem unacceptable.
Oh.
Like repressed desires, weaknesses, even those positive traits that, someone somewhere told us were wrong.
Okay, now it's getting a little spooky. So is this like that inner voice, the one you're not good enough or don't even bother trying?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
But Jung's saying it's not just random negativity, it's this whole hidden aspect of ourselves. It's a part of us.
Exactly. And here's the kicker, and I love this part. The less we acknowledge the shadow, the more power it actually has over us.
It's true.
It becomes this invisible force that can sabotage even our best efforts, holding us back without us even realizing it.
Precisely. And this is where Jung gets really, really interesting, I think. He believed that the shadow, it isn't inherently bad. Think of it more as this raw, untapped energy.
Okay.
If we can confront it, if we can integrate it into our conscious personality, it can become a source of creativity, growth even.
Wait, so are you saying we need to make friends with our demons?
In a way, yeah.
How does that work in real life? Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you're someone who always shies away from leadership roles. You're always the helper, never the leader.
Right.
This could be your shadow, holding you back from a deep-seated desire for, say, recognition, authority, maybe. By acknowledging this hidden desire, you can start to make different choices.
Yeah.
You can step into those leadership opportunities, even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're reclaiming that energy instead of letting it control you from the shadows.
Exactly.
But how does all this shadow stuff tie into achieving success?
That's where things get really interesting. Because the shadow, it also holds those repressed desires we talked about.
Right.
If we're constantly battling those hidden parts of ourselves, it can drain our energy. It keeps us from going after what we truly want.
Okay.
But integrating the shadow, that can free up that energy. It allows us to pursue our goals with more authenticity and, ironically, less internal resistance.
So it's less about crushing it and more about understanding ourselves deeply enough to remove those self-imposed roadblocks.
I like that. It's about getting out of your own way.
Exactly. And speaking of getting out of our own way, let's shift gears to our next mind-bending topic, the power of sound and vibration. Now, this might sound a little out there.
Okay, I'll admit, when I saw this in the source material, I was like, are we about to get really woo-woo? But then, I don't know, I kept reading, and honestly, it's less woo-woo and more like science we haven't fully wrapped our heads around yet.
Absolutely. The research on this is fascinating. There are documented experiments demonstrating the ability of sound to influence matter at a fundamental level.
Wait, hold on. Are you telling me they created physical shapes just with sound? That's some next-level stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
One experiment described in the source material, they used these specific sound frequencies to create patterns in sand.
Really?
Yeah, on a metal plate. And get this. By changing the frequency, they could create completely different shapes.
Wow.
It shows how sound, this invisible force can have these tangible effects on the physical world.
Okay, that is wild.
Yeah.
And there's more, right? Didn't they use sound to actually change the structure of water?
You're right on track.
Hmm.
Researchers found that by playing specific frequencies through water, they could actually alter its molecular structure.
No way.
Yeah, in some cases, it even created these like beautiful crystal-like patterns. And this is where it gets really interesting because what is our body mostly made of?
Water. Okay, now I'm starting to see where this is going. If sound can do that to water, what could it be doing to us?
That's the million-dollar question. The research is still ongoing, but there are some really intriguing possibilities. The source material also mentioned experiments using sound frequencies to target and potentially even destroy cancer cells. So we're not just talking about pretty patterns here. We're talking about huge implications for health and healing.
Whoa. And speaking of healing, what about the Mozart effect? That idea that listening to classical music, especially Mozart, can actually boost your brain power.
Absolutely. Studies have shown a correlation between listening to Mozart and improved spatial temporal reasoning. That's your brain's ability to visualize and manipulate objects in your mind.
So it's like a mental workout, but instead of lifting weights, you're listening to catchy tunes. Do they know why it works?
The exact mechanisms are still being studied. But one theory is that the complexity of Mozart's music, with all the different melodies and rhythms, might be stimulating various parts of the brain simultaneously.
Interesting.
And that leads to this temporary cognitive boost.
Okay, so we're talking about using specific sound frequencies to boost our mental state, maybe even our physical health. This is blowing my mind.
What's fascinating is how this connects the idea of everything vibrating at a particular frequency.
Everything.
If sound can influence matter at such a fundamental level, it makes you wonder, how might we be able to use this knowledge to shape our reality more consciously?
Which leads us perfectly to our next source, Neville Goddard and his law of assumption. Because if everything is vibration and our thoughts and beliefs are also energy, well, things are about to get really interesting, right?
Neville Goddard was all about the power of the mind to shape reality. And he wasn't talking about wishful thinking. He believed that to truly manifest your desires, it requires a deep level of belief and, more importantly, acting as if the desired outcome is already true.
So it's not just fake it till you make it, it's more like believe it till you become it.
That's a great way to put it. Goddard argued that our assumptions quite literally create our reality. What we believe to be true about ourselves and the world around us directly shapes our experiences.
Okay, I'm on board with the theory, but in reality, that can be a tough pill to swallow, Especially when life keeps throwing curveballs. How do you bridge that gap between where you are and where you want to be, especially when they seem miles apart?
Goddard offered several techniques for putting the law of assumption into practice. One that particularly stood out to me is the telephone technique.
The what?
The telephone technique. It involves essentially revising undesirable situations in your imagination.
So let's say you had a terrible job interview. Are you saying you mentally replay it, but with a different ending?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You imagine the entire conversation unfolding differently, but the key is to really feel it. The confidence, the connection, the excitement of being offered the job. You focus on those feelings associated with the desired outcome until they become more real than the memory of the original event.
Wow, so you're basically rewriting the script in your mind.
Yeah.
And that can actually impact your reality. How does that work?
Goddard believed that our subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. By repeatedly replaying the desired scenario, infused with strong positive emotion, you're essentially reprogramming your subconscious mind, bringing it into alignment with your desired outcome.
Okay, that is seriously mind-bending. It's like we have this incredible power within us to shape our own reality, but most of us don't even realize it.
Precisely. And this concept of conscious choice aligns surprisingly well with the driven, action-oriented approach of our entrepreneur source, even though they come from very different worlds.
Right, because our entrepreneur source, and we'll dive into this more in the next part, they weren't big on meditation or like manifestation. They were all about taking massive action, moving fast, and not letting anything hold you back. Which, when you think about it, is kind of its own form of assuming your desired reality.
And it's like Goddard and our entrepreneur are both singing from the same song sheet,
Mhm.
just different keys.
Uh,
One's all about that internal alignment, and the other one, they're all about that external hustle. But both of them, they agree on this. You don't just wish for success, so you
Regards-
become it.
And that's what I love about this deep dive. It's like weaving together these different threads of wisdom, and then you can actually see the bigger picture. But okay, let's zoom back in on those two M's of the universe we talked about earlier, magnification and maintenance. I don't know about you, but those really stuck with me.
Yeah, those are key. They explain how our energy, our emotions, directly shape the reality that we experience, which is kind of a big deal when you think about it.
Right. It's like the universe is this giant echo chamber amplifying whatever we're putting out there. And then on top of that, it's working to keep us at that same level, which is kind of scary when you really think about it.
Exactly. So if our dominant emotional state is shaping our reality, and that state is largely influenced by, our subconscious beliefs.
Then we need to reprogram those deep-seated beliefs. But how do you even do that? It's not like you can just argue with your subconscious and make it change its mind.
You're right. It's not about conscious willpower. It's more about creating new pathways in the brain, new patterns of thinking and feeling. And the most effective way to do that is through, you guessed it, intense emotion.
Emotions. Okay, now how does that reprogram anything?
Think about it. Have you ever had an experience that was so emotionally charged, so vivid, that it just changed your perspective? Almost like it rewired your brain.
Absolutely. I mean, those are the moments that shape who we become, right?
Precisely. Those intense emotions imprint themselves on our subconscious. So if we can generate those same intense positive emotions, but this time around our desired reality, our subconscious starts believing that reality is not only possible, but inevitable.
So it's not just thinking positive thoughts, it's about really feeling them deeply, like they're already happening right now in this moment.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really cool. To amplify those emotions, we can use sensory immersion.
Sensory. Wait, hold on. Are we talking aromatherapy and mood lighting now?
Well, you could use those things.
Yeah.
But I'm really talking about engaging all five senses in the visualization process. Don't just see your desired reality. Feel it, hear it, smell it, the works.
So instead of just like daydreaming, you're creating this whole immersive experience in your mind.
Right. The more senses you can engage, the more real it becomes to your subconscious mind. You're not just passively observing anymore, you're actively experiencing. And that is what makes the difference.
Okay, so let's say my goal is to write a best-selling novel. I shouldn't just visualize the book cover with my name on it. I should imagine the feeling of the keyboard under my fingertips, the smell of the coffee I drink while I write, even the sound of the applause when I'm like accepting an award.
Right, now you're getting it.
Right.
The more detailed and emotionally charged that experience is, the more powerful the imprint it leaves on your subconscious mind.
So it's like we're planting these seeds in the garden of our minds. And those seeds are only going to grow if we water them with belief, attention, and consistent action.
Beautifully said. It's not enough to just, visualize it once and then forget about it. Cultivate that deep belief. Immerse yourself in the sensory experience of your desired reality, and then crucially take aligned action in the physical world.
So it's like we're creating this feedback loop of belief, emotion, and action, and it's this loop that propels us toward our goals. Honestly, it almost sounds like magic.
It's not magic, but it can feel like it sometimes. And this is where those three planes of existence we talked about come into play. Remember, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual.
Right, and we're not just talking about these planes in some like abstract philosophical way, right? We're talking about actually using them as a framework for creating lasting change in our lives. But how? Give me an example of how these planes actually work together in real life.
Okay, let's say your goal is to start a successful business. So on the mental plane, you're going to visualize yourself running that business, right? The joy of bringing your vision to life, the satisfaction of serving your customers, the abundance that you're creating. But you're not just thinking it, you're feeling it.
Got it. So what about the physical plane? What does that look like?
This is where you're taking that aligned action. You're developing a business plan, you're networking with potential clients, you're investing in your skills and knowledge. You're putting in the work, yeah, but it's fueled by that vision that you created on the mental plane.
Okay, so you've got the vision and the action. Where does the spiritual plane fit into all of this?
This is about trusting that you're being guided, that you're being supported, that there's a greater purpose behind your vision, even if you can't always see it. You're aligning yourself with something larger than yourself, trusting that the universe has your back.
So it's like you're creating this powerful synergy by aligning your actions across these three planes. And that's when things really start to click.
Exactly. You're creating this vortex of energy that pulls your desired reality into being.
Mm.
And as you continue to take aligned action, the universe, it responds. Opportunities appear, resources become available, synchronicities, they just all line up.
That makes sense. But what about those times when we feel lost, unsure of which action to take or which path to follow? We can visualize and believe all we want, but sometimes, we just need a little direction.
That's where your inner GPS comes in. That intuitive knowing, that gut feeling that guides you toward your highest good, even when, logic might say otherwise.
You mean like trusting our intuition? That's always easier said than done, though, right?
It takes practice.
Yeah.
Quiet the mind. Tune in to those subtle whispers of your soul and learn to trust that inner voice, even when it seems, I don't know, maybe a little bit crazy. Remember, our entrepreneur source built an entire business empire on following his gut.
True, but how do we know we're not just mistaking, like fear for intuition? How do you tell the difference?
That's the thing about developing self-awareness. You learn to discern between fear-based intuition, which tends to hold you back, and love-based intuition, which always guides you towards growth, even if it's, outside of your comfort zone.
So we're not just blindly following every hunch. We're learning to differentiate, to really trust our inner compass, even when it leads us off the beaten path, right?
Precisely. And that trust is key. It allows you to kind of surrender to the unfolding of your journey, knowing that you're always being guided, even when you can't see the bigger picture.
It's about letting go of control, allowing the universe to work its magic. Okay, I can get on board with that. But how does this letting go actually manifest in our lives? How do we go from feeling stuck to experiencing that effortless flow?
That's a great question, and it's something a lot of people struggle with.
Because we can talk about these concepts and, we can understand them intellectually.
Right.
But to actually embody them, to live them,
Yeah.
that's where the real transformation happens,
So how do we do that? How do we take all this amazing information and actually use it? How do we bridge that gap, between understanding and actually living it?
It starts, I think, with a shift in perspective. Remember that idea of unique luck that our entrepreneur source talked about? It's not just about, random chance or being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
It's about creating the conditions for those serendipitous moments to occur.
Right, like increasing your luck surface area, putting yourself out there, taking action, being open to those new possibilities.
Exactly. And recognizing that we are active participants in creating our reality, not just passive observers along for the ride.
Right, we're not just along for the ride, we're actually like driving the bus.
We are driving the bus.
Mhm.
And that starts with awareness.
Okay.
Tuning in to our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, and really paying attention to how those things are shaping the experiences that we're having.
So it's not just about like, slapping on a happy face and thinking positive thoughts all the time. It's deeper than that.
It's so much deeper than that.
It's about recognizing what is our dominant emotional state and how is that actually playing out in the world around us.
Yes. And noticing those patterns.
Mhm.
Are you constantly, for example, attracting stressful situations? Financial struggles, maybe. It might be time to look inward and ask yourself, what belief systems, what subconscious programs are actually contributing to this reality that I'm experiencing?
Okay, so let's say we've done the work.
Okay.
We've identified those limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
We're visualizing, we're feeling into that desired reality, we're taking aligned action, but we still hit roadblocks. Because, life happens.
Right.
Things get in the way. We doubt ourselves. We get discouraged. What do we do then? How do we stay the course, especially when it feels like maybe the universe isn't really cooperating?
I think that's where the real magic happens.
Oh, okay. Tell me more about that.
In those moments of challenge, those moments of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Because that's when our connection to something larger than ourselves, that spiritual plane that we talked about, that's what becomes our anchor.
So it's not about like pretending everything is always perfect. It's about having that deeper sense of purpose, of meaning to fall back on when things get tough.
Exactly. It's in those moments of doubt that we need to remember the power of our own resilience.
Okay.
Our ability to tap into that inner strength and keep moving forward, even when we can't see the whole path ahead.
And that's where I think the 2 M's come back in, right?
Absolutely.
Magnification and maintenance.
Yes, yes.
Because if we allow ourselves to just spiral into negativity, well, the universe is just going to amplify that. But if we can find a way to shift our focus, even just a little bit, to cultivate gratitude, even amidst all the chaos.
You're shifting into a different frequency.
Okay.
It's a higher vibration, and the universe, it responds accordingly.
Yeah.
And it's not about denying the challenges,
Okay.
right? It's about choosing how we respond to them, how we allow them to shape us moving forward.
So it's an inside-out approach to success, really. By changing ourselves, by shifting our internal world, we can ultimately change our external reality.
I love that.
But it's not always easy, right?
No, it's not a straight line.
It's a process. There's going to be ups and downs.
It is. There's going to be times when we fall back into old patterns,
Mm.
you know, when we doubt ourselves, when we want to just give up.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. It's a journey. It's not a destination. And like any journey, there will be detours, roadblocks, maybe even a few wrong turns along the way.
Right.
But you know what? It's those experiences, the bumps in the road, those are the things that really teach us. They shape us, and they ultimately lead us to where we're meant to be.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
You know, if there's one thing I hope listeners remember, it's that they already have everything they need within them
Mm.
to create a life of purpose,
Yeah.
meaning, and yes, even success. It's not about finding some magic formula or following someone else's blueprint, step by step.
Right.
It's about tapping into their own unique brilliance, their own inner wisdom, and trusting the unfolding of their own unique journey.
That's beautiful. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
It has been a good one.
We've covered a lot of ground, explored some pretty mind-bending concepts,
We have.
and hopefully ignited some new ideas and inspiration for our listeners.
I hope so. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
As always.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah. And to our amazing listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this journey of exploration. Remember, the most important knowledge is the kind that empowers you to create the life you truly desire. So keep asking questions, keep challenging the status quo, and most importantly, keep believing in your own limitless potential. Until next time, keep exploring.